BHS. I'm Rebekah Gay.
I'm Brady Crapo, and this is BHS News.
Some interesting stuff here going on at BHS.
A Twitter page called Faculty of the Day was made by 2 students. For some updates on the fall sports seasons. Football had an outstanding season. They went 7-1 in the regular season. They made it to the Southern Maine Championship with a tough loss to Kennebunk.
Field hockey went 5-9 and beat Thornton Academy in the first round of playoffs.
Cross country made it to states for the first time since 1994.
Volleyball went 12-2 and made the playoffs.
Current senior Matt Brady signed his national letter of intent with UConn to throw shot put following his high school career.
Some unfortunate news. The end-line bleachers got shut down at Waterhouse Field. Plans of renovations are in the works, but funding is an issue.
Waterhouse Field is one of the most famous fields in the state of Maine and even New England. Over the past 10 to 15 years, the facilities have started to worsen. Some people don't believe renovations are necessary, and others don't understand the plans. There has been a lot of talk and effort throughout the city to try to renovate Waterhouse Field. The bleachers are in very poor condition, as well as other parts of the facility. The goal of this video is to inform the public of the state of Waterhouse Field and the plans to continue its rich history. Alright, so I'm here with the athletic director, Mr. Walton, to talk about how different sports will be affected by the Waterhouse renovation. Alright, so first, how will some sports seasons be affected, where the location of the games will be, and the Lobster Bowl?
Well, the sports that are currently playing at Waterhouse are going to continue to play at Waterhouse, which is football and soccer and lacrosse. How it will affect another sport would be field hockey, because field hockey would allow us to move from Dorn Field to Waterhouse Field. The other impact would be that the soccer and lacrosse would be able to play on regulation fields as opposed to the smaller fields they're playing on now. As far as the Lobster Bowl, that's kind of a up in the air type of thing, because as we go through this renovation process, we don't know yet what we're going to get. And what I mean by that is the Lobster Bowl is very much dependent on the capacity of the stadium that they play the game at. They've played there for the last 25 plus years because it's such a large stadium.
What do you think the capacity will be?
Right now, at this time, I'm very uncertain. That's kind of where we are in the process, talking with school board members and superintendent, and ideally we'd love to keep the capacity that we have. It would be able to attract a lot of great events, keep the Lobster Bowl. I've already spoken to the Maine Principals Association. They'd be interested in using Waterhouse for state championship games. But again, that's very dependent on the capacity.
Alright, so which sports in Biddeford High School do you think will be most affected by the renovation, either positively or negatively?
I don't think any sport would be impacted negatively. We did all, but I just mentioned one nice thing for soccer and lacrosse is that they'll be able to play on a regulation federation field. And probably again, the biggest impact would be on field hockey, which would get to go from a grass surface to a artificial surface, which if you've ever seen field hockey, and I know you have, yes. Field hockey is going in a direction where no one plays on grass anymore. It's not the same game. Mm-hmm. So that would be huge for field hockey because it sort of would even the playing field.
So you mentioned the field being regulation. How much would the field need to be expanded for that?
I don't have the exact dimensions, but I would say you're looking at at least 10 yards. Whether how much would come from one end or one side, or how much would come from the other, that would all be part of the renovation plan.
What are some challenges that sports have as the facility is now?
Well, just quickly mention it again would be the field size for those sports. But another big challenge on natural grass is field conditions. We're not able to utilize Waterhouse Field all summer long in preparation of the fall season. Another challenge is inclement weather. We've been fairly lucky, but a great example would be, we have a Friday night football game and they're calling for rain. And I get those people saying, well, football plays in the rain. I mean, unless it's really bad, we should just go ahead and play. But what they're not considering is that at 10 o'clock the next morning, I have a girls' soccer game.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to call a football game off just because it's raining out. And the flip side, I don't want to create a situation where tomorrow morning the soccer team is now canceled because the field is a mud bowl, which, as you know, this year, at the end of the season, yeah, we turned Waterhouse into a mud bowl.
Yeah.
Had that happened in September, we would have had some big problems moving forward.
All right, so I'm here with Superintendent Ray. to discuss the warehouse renovation. So, when is the renovation expected to take place, and how long will it take?
So right now, we're in the middle of the process of completing a field usage study for the entire city of Biddeford. The school committee asked the administration to look at all the facilities in Biddeford while working on the Waterhouse project. One of the things they want to make sure is that all of our playing surfaces are equitable for all student athletes, and thinking that having a discussion with the public about all the facilities at one time might be a better process.
What are some setbacks that could occur in this process?
I think some of the setbacks that could occur, certainly we still have to gather public opinion about Waterhouse Field and all the fields in the city about what the residents think will be the best alternative moving forward. Ownership of fields is still in question. The city owns a lot of the facilities in town, and the school department owns only a couple, Brother Hebert Field and our middle school fields, and then Waterhouse is owned actually by the Waterhouse Commission and leased to the city. So ownership can be a setback, and certainly funding can always become a problem.
What is going to be the same with the facility?
So with the facility, we'd be looking to, if Waterhouse were to be renovated, the concession stands would remain the same. Basically the same layout of the field in the same direction. Lights would be, they'd be new, but they'd be about the same, and really there's just the plot of land is about the same with a whole lot of improvements.
Okay, and what is going to be different?
Okay, so the differences would be significant if approved. We would be looking at less capacity. That's a stadium that has 6,000, that holds 6,000 people, and that may not be the need that we have anymore. We wouldn't have end zone bleachers. We would be looking at new lights, new scoreboards, new press box, and hopefully an upgrade of visiting and away locker rooms and bathroom facilities.
Okay, saying all of that, what do you think needs the most attention of those things?
The most attention is bleachers and lights. The bleachers are in tough shape. We've shut the end zone bleachers down. We have several breaks throughout the year, and I think we worry about the long-term stability of the structure. In addition, the lights were put up in 1985 and have been there for over 30 years, and for our students who play there, especially on some of those football games, there can be some dark spots on the field. The lights are on wooden poles, and they're not really as high as most complexes would like, not only for football, but for soccer and lacrosse, which is also played at that facility. There's a desire to have much higher lights.
Right. What is the outlook on turf versus grass?
I think that the idea of turf versus grass will be heavily debated in Biddeford. I think there's pluses and minuses of either. One of the considerations that we have is if we make the facility regulation for field hockey, soccer, and lacrosse, there's a small price differential between keeping it grass and moving to turf. Also, many of the other sports that are played on there, such as lacrosse and field hockey, would much rather have that game played on turf. And then there's also the issue of when you have a grass field, you can only use it so many hours a year, versus a turf field can be used much more, which would incorporate youth athletics and adult athletics to have the ability to play on that field.
Okay, and lastly, one of the most important, obviously, how will this renovation be funded?
Well, that will be the tricky part. A lot of this hopefully will come through donations, but donations will not get us the entire way. We've currently raised a little over $300,000 in donations for Waterhouse Field, but we need to begin studying, as we study all the facilities in town, we may have to look at what the taxpayers can afford as part of this process.
old friend. I recall the times we had hanging on my wall. I wouldn't trade.
This year, Biddeford High School changed its schedule to a late start, starting at 8:35. What was the reason for the late start?
I think it was something that Mr. Ray was passionate about. He had done a lot of research, and he came from a district where, in Westbrook, where they had already made an adjustment to their schedule, moving it to 8 o'clock. And he'd done a lot of research, and everything from districts around the country that said 8:30 to 9 o'clock was the proper time for high school age students. And I think one of the things that really drove it was the middle school, where they were starting at 7:20. So getting them to school at 7:20 just wasn't working either.
What time are they at now?
They start at 8:40.
8:40?
Yeah. And they go till, I think it's 3:10.
What steps were taken to decide what time high school would start at? Because you have to figure out all the schools to start at the right times to have that.
It was really dictated by the bus schedule.
Yeah.
You know, if you notice this year, the bus schedule is really condensed, and moving the elementary school to later in the day wasn't an option, so it was either moving them forward a little bit or adjusting our time. So I would say next year you'll see us still start at 8:35. Bus schedule has started to work and hasn't really been an issue. So it was really around transportation.
Has everybody seemed to like it all across the board, the new change?
I think the teachers like it. I haven't heard anything from parents. Kids have been, even kids that were totally against it last year, for the most part, have been more positive about it. And to the point where I've had kids that have come up and said, I was against it, I really like it now. So, there'll still be some people that don't like it, but I think it's been positive so far.
What steps did you and the superintendent have to go through to get it passed?
Well, we had to come up with a plan. There was it was a year's worth of work. I mean, Mr. Walton had to go through and do mock scheduling to try to figure out how many times kids were going to have to be dismissed early, adjusting start times for games, right down to our daily schedule, and trying to figure out all the ins and outs of that. Mr. Ray had a lot of discussion with the school committee. There was a sort of a tri-community forum with Saco, Dayton, and Biddeford to make this a joint decision. So all three boards got together and made the decision together that they were going to kind of form a partnership to make this work. So it wasn't just us out on our own.
And since you spoke about Mr. Walton and having to create a mock schedule, how does the late start affect sports?
I think, a lot of our games start at 4. A lot of schools have been accommodating to adjust that a little bit. This fall, roughly the same amount of early dismissals as we had last year. He really made a commitment to try not to have anybody dismissed before 2:15, and that's something I wanted to have happen. I didn't think, it didn't make sense to let people leave at 1:30.
Mm-hmm.
So, it condensed that time a little bit. Might have adjusted some warm-up time. As it stands, we have a lot of teams that get there an hour and 10 minutes early. I'm not sure we need 60 minutes of warm-up time. So it's just being a little more responsible with the times that we have. As far as practices, they all got bumped a little bit. You see it a little more in the winter, but we have the luxury of the 2 gyms. So it's a work in progress. This winter, he's got scheduled right now, it's either 6 or 8 teams that will have to be dismissed early, which is actually right around or less than last year so far. So the winter we have the luxury because we do have the 2 gyms. So.
Do you like late start? Why or why not?
Well, I like it for the most part because I get to stay up a little bit later and have more time in the morning. But then I also don't like it when it comes to school, getting out at 2:40.
So you said you went to bed later than you did last year?
Yes, I did. I probably at least an hour later than I usually did.
So does that cancel out like why we changed to a late start because you go to bed later?
Yeah, probably.
Do you still feel rested or do you still feel the same?
I feel exactly the same as I did because I don't think I really had a problem in the past with school start time.
How do you feel with after school sports? Do you feel like it just drags on forever because it's later, or how do you feel?
Well, it's a little bit later, but it's not too bad, I don't think. I think we got used to it.
Are you less tardy because of the late start?
Well, I didn't really have a problem with that. I know that some kids did, and they probably have been a little bit better because of it.
Are your grades any better because of the late start?
They are not.
Do you like late start, and why or why not?
I really don't like late start. The reason why is I don't see a difference in getting up 45 minutes earlier, an hour earlier to get to school an hour earlier, and still go to bed and wake up at the same time. There's very little change in my sleep schedule because of it.
Do you go to bed later because you know you can get up later?
I think I'm more tempted to go to bed later. I definitely stay up a lot later than I usually do because I'm able to get that little extra time to sleep.
So do you feel more rested, or is it about the same as previous years?
It's about the same. The only difference is that I'm waking up and it's somewhat sunny out.
How do you feel about sports being later? Do you think that it's worse off, or do you like how it's later in the day?
I think it's kind of worse because with homework and other things you do with sports, it's pushing those things back and it's changing the times you do them. So it's honestly making it harder and more difficult on a student athlete's life.
Are you less tardy than you have been in the past because you have that extra time?
No, I'm really usually not that tardy and it hasn't changed that much.
Are your grades any better because of the late start?
No, they're the same.
Do you like late start? Why or why not?
I don't like late start because I find myself getting home later and I usually get to bed later than I usually would and I don't get as much sleep as I'd like to.
So you don't feel more rested with the late start?
No, I don't.
How much later do you go to bed?
Probably like an hour later.
Do you feel that sports are affected by the late start?
Only that they get out later and you can't do as much when you get home.
Do practices still go fine even though it's a little bit later?
Yeah, practices still go alright.
Are your grades any better?
No, they're the same.
Are you less tardy?
Kinda.
Do you feel that people in your class are less tardy because of the late start?
Yeah, for the most part.
Do you think that their grades get any better?
I don't know, I haven't really checked their grades at all.
I'm Joe Morrison. Let's get down to business.
Do you like late start? Why or why not?
I do not like late start because I get up at 6 either way to go to my boy Tommy's house because my mom can't bring me to school and I don't want to take the bus. So I do not like late start.
Do you go to bed later than you did before?
Yeah,
How much later?
like an hour, hour and a half, hour 45 if we're really pushing it.
Do you feel more rested?
Not really, because I'm going to bed later anyways and waking up as early as I would.
So why do you go to bed later if you know you have to get up at the same time?
Because I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, Brad.
Do you feel that sports are affected by the late start?
Yeah, because we get out of the sport later, and then you have like no daylight left to do anything.
Are your grades any better this year?
No, not really.
Are you less tardy?
No, not really.
Have you seen your classmates being less tardy because of it?
Couple of them, yeah.
But you don't think that it's really affected much?
No. Thank you.
I was left to my own devices. Many days fell.
Jacob Bilski received the Best Delegate Award when attending the Regional New England Model UN Conference. This was the first time anyone from BHS received the gavel.
Let's hear more about it. To you, Joey.
I'm here with Mr. Minzy, the co-advisor of Model UN. What is Model UN about?
So Model UN is a simulation where we as a team go to a conference, and at that conference we represent countries. There we have to kind of solve global issues, but do so in a way that helps our country. So we have to kind of both role play, solve a foreign issue, but also play politics.
What is it like to be part of Model UN?
Well, you have kind of both acting and dealing with global issues, foreign issues. So it's kind of a fun role-playing adventure. At the same point, you're dealing and doing some really smart stuff and hanging out with some of the smartest people in New England.
What is the gavel and how is it won?
So once you're there, you have to be, some of these committees are, the largest committee we're in is over 200 people, the smallest one is 30 people. And if you're the best person in that committee, then you earn the gavel. And it's called Best Delegate. And so far, we've only won one gavel here, but we just recently won it.
Cool.
Thank you, Joey. And that wraps up BHS News.